would literally pull all-nighters as a freshman. I would not have a lunch break. My biggest regret in high school. Hi, I'm Michael. I'm a student at Brown University, and today I'll be sharing the stats that got me into Brown, as well as advice for any students applying to college. So to start with stats, for high school I had a weighted GPA of 100, and my school didn't do unweighted GPA, but I can assure you that not all of my grades were perfect. But besides my weighted GPA, on the SAT I got a 1560 out of 1600, and I got a 760 on the reading and writing portion and an 800 on the math portion. And for my essay, I got straight sixes, so that was 18 out of 24, so writing is obviously not my strong suit. I also took a few SAT subject tests, which are tests designed to showcase knowledge in a certain subject. And in order, I took an SAT subject test in biology, chemistry, and math level 2. In biology, I got a 770 out of 800. In chemistry, I got a 750 out of 800. And in math level 2, I got an 800 out of 800. In terms of AP classes and advanced coursework, I took 15 AP classes in my time in high school, and I took tests for 11 of those APs. I also took basically all of the advanced classes that I could take in high school. I never skipped any sort of subject in any sort of sense, but I did make sure to challenge myself by taking as much advanced coursework as possible. In freshman year, I took AP World History back when it was about everything from ancient to modern history, and I got a 5. In my sophomore year, I took AP European History and AP Psychology, both of which I got 5s on. In my junior year, the pandemic hit right before the AP test, so they changed them to be online. I took 4 AP classes junior year: AP US History, AP Physics 1, AP Computer Science A, and AP English Language and Composition. I got 5s in AP US History and AP Physics 1, and 4s in AP Computer Science A and AP English Language and Composition. In my senior year, I took 8 AP classes, and I only took tests for 4 of the AP classes that I took, so it was much more manageable than I expected it to be. So I took AP Chemistry, in which I got a 5. I took AP Biology, in which I got a 5. I took AP Spanish Language, in which I got a 5. And I took AP Calculus BC, in which I got a 5. The other 4 classes that I took, which were AP English Literature and Composition, AP US Government and Politics, AP Comparative Government and Politics, and AP Microeconomics. I did not take the AP test for those classes because once I committed to Brown, I looked up the AP requirements and the credit acquisition for those classes and understood that taking those tests would have no benefit in terms of any sort of credit that I would get for those classes. So I made sure to study for the other 4 tests and do well on them. So every high school has different rigors for their AP and honors coursework. I went to a reputable public high school with a class size of about 550, so there was definitely some competition, but there was definitely also a lot of room for taking different interests in different classes. In terms of my freshman year, I would say that was the most difficult year I had in high school because of the adjustment that I had to take, specifically because AP classes are generally harder at my school than honors classes. The way that AP World History was taught at my school was to literally make it the most difficult class one could ever take, especially as a freshman, because we were expected to fully read and cover 30-page textbook chapters and get quizzed on these every single week. We would literally go through, write essays, prepare ourselves intensely, even have some after-school sessions for this class, which looking back is not very necessary to prepare yourself well for AP World History. And even though the class was very difficult to handle as a freshman, I'll say that it was much more difficult than it needed to be, despite the fact that the rigor of the class made me feel very well prepared for the test. But I would literally pull all-nighters as a freshman for a class in history when I was literally wanting to be a pre-med. So it really didn't line up, and looking back, I don't think it would make sense to go back and do that class if I had to redo high school again. Also, a word of advice to people when we're taking AP tests. I always make sure that I feel comfortable when I'm taking any sort of test that will determine something as important as where I'm going to college. For the AP Spanish test that I took senior year, I literally was sitting in a wobbly desk, so I asked them to change the desk, and then when my nose started running, I asked them to get a tissue, and they gave me a whole new tissue box, and then they called me high maintenance. I literally just want to be ready and confident in taking a test well. So any word of advice to a student, make sure that your complaints are heard. Make sure that you are in an environment in which you are comfortable, because the environment in which you take an exam or test can completely affect the outcome of how you do. One time I was starving during a test because I forgot to eat breakfast, and my stomach was literally in pain while I was trying to finish a geometry test. So the environment is so important when I'm taking a test, and I really find it important, especially now in college, that I'm in a very relaxed, calm, and peace of mind mood and sense before I'm about to take an exam. The Common App lets you list 10 activities. So in order of my 10 activities, I first put that I was the president of my high school's male a cappella group. Second, I put that I was a competitor on my speech and debate team in extemporaneous speaking. Third, I put that I was treasurer of mathletes. Fourth, I put that I was a competitor for my science Olympiad team. Fifth, I put that I volunteered for my church choir and cantored and sang every Sunday for multiple years. Sixth, I put that I was an algebra tutor for National Honor Society, of which I was on the executive board. Seventh, I put that I went on some sort of trip to Spain where I did volunteering and environmental restoration. Eighth, I put that I lifeguarded over the summer. Ninth, I put that I went to Polish school and that I got a 94 out of 100 on our language other than English exam. And 10, I was on a club swim team that I swam about 4 times a week on. In terms of the awards that I discussed, I put that I was an AP Scholar with distinction, which is just something that I got for doing well on multiple AP tests. Second, I put that I was an alternate for the All-National Mixed Choir as a bass 2 singer. Third, I wrote that I was selected as an alternate for my All-State Mixed Choir. And fourth, I wrote that I got 5th place in my state's extemporaneous speaking tournament for speech and debate. So now that all the stats are out of the way, I wanted to share that my biggest regret in high school was going above and beyond in areas that I simply did not care for. In terms of my AP World class in freshman year, I literally went into college as a pre-med, as a bio major. So it made no sense for me to go and exert myself so much by pulling all-nighters freshman year to do somewhat well in this AP World class when I literally didn't even want to major in history or anything related to it. Honestly, the class sort of touted my academic ego at the time, which is one of the main reasons I took it looking back, and it was a complete mistake in my eyes. Even though I got to learn some skills in terms of studying and I got to expose myself to an AP test, it just wasn't worth it looking back at it. Also, even though I was on the swim team and I listed it last on my activities list, it took up so much of my time during the week because I would have to drive with my family about 20 to 30 minutes back and forth between practice, and each practice would be about 90 minutes long, and then on Sundays it would be 2 hours long. So all of that time that I went into swimming, although it was good for my own health, I never became an outstanding swimmer, and I put so much effort into this up until the beginning of senior year. So all that time, even though it technically didn't go to waste because I was going outside and swimming, it did really take up a lot of my time, which could have been put to doing other stuff. So I would advise my younger self in high school to invest my time wisely because it is so limited and I already spend so much time doing work. I don't want to spend so much time on stuff that's going to be no more than a blurb on my college admissions application. On the lines of going above and beyond on stuff you don't care for, from my sophomore to my senior year, I would not have a lunch break, which is insane looking back, but I would eat lunch basically during some classes that I found less strenuous. So I remember in my sophomore year, I would walk in getting lunch for my AP Psych class. But although the practice was somewhat common in my high school, especially for kids who wanted to push themselves academically, I don't think it was worth it, especially senior year, when I took a class in AP Comparative Government, when I literally don't even care that much about politics and government. I was looking to apply as a pre-med, as a bio major, so doing that stuff was just simply not important for my application at all. Also, as physical evidence of that, the other person in my school who did end up going to Brown with me had a lunch break senior year and never took the AP World strenuous class that I took freshman year. So there's no point in academically exerting oneself if I simply know that there are examples of people who are particularly excelling in one certain area, in some ways we call it a spike, and getting accepted to the same place. And I wish I knew that back then when I was going into high school. But speaking of spikes, that leads me into my second piece of advice, which is to have a spike in one's academics. I would say that my spike was particularly focused on singing and music. Even though I didn't necessarily say I would major in music, I feel that colleges particularly look at academic accomplishment in any area and believe that it can translate well into any sort of area that one applies for. It's really the application and the pursuit of achievements and awards in a specific area that shows colleges that you are committed and the potential talent that they want to admit into their school. Also, it is important to leverage the spike that one has. So when I was talking about my spike with music, I made sure to say on my application that I would join an a cappella group at Brown, which I did, but it really shows that you want to pursue that spike and that you're going to apply that spike in your time at college. Also, I find it helpful to compare myself to the other students in my high school because what colleges generally do is look at the students in the high school and compare them to each other, and also look at the students in the area that apply to their school, of course. So just comparing myself to the accomplishments of the students that also are in my high school, especially if the high school is particularly rigorous and also has students looking to apply to more selective schools. It's a great reference to see where I stand. But stemming from the spike on my college application, my third piece of advice would be to have some activities related to the major that one intends to pursue. So I applied as a biology major, particularly because I'm pre-med and it fit the role. But I also had some activities that would support the fact that I wanted to become a biology major and I wanted to be pre-med, despite the fact that I had such a large spike in music. In high school, I took a class called Advanced Research, which was a class that one had to apply for, and it went through 10th through 12th grade. Although I did drop in 12th grade, I had a bunch of opportunities to pursue independent research projects that I ended up putting on my resume and discussing in my application to my colleges. So that showed that I had some background and had some knowledge in terms of the field that I want to study, and that showed some passion and achievement behind the intended major that I wanted to pursue in college. Although I did quit senior year because applying with a research project to a national competition, for example, almost always requires some sort of mentor outside of the school, and there were no mentors in my school specifically. So it is what it is. And finally, my last and probably most important piece of advice is to take advantage and enjoy the social aspect of high school. When I look back at my high school years, I see myself as a student who was really brought up and had their whole confidence resting on their academic ego, which led me to take really intense courses that I honestly probably didn't need to take, considering the major that I wanted to pursue. And this sort of mentality closed me off from other people as an underclassman. And although I did open up more as an upperclassman, I do regret not doing so earlier in my high school career. Because having friends to talk to in class and having friends to hang out with during the week or on the weekends is one of the more enjoyable parts of high school, and simply entrenching myself in academics was not the best decision looking back, but it is possible to balance it. If you want more college advice, be sure to check out my video on tips for success as a college student and a student anywhere. Thanks for watching. Be sure to like, comment, subscribe, and hit the bell for more videos on college advice and self-improvement, and I'll see you next time.